the Philadelphia police force. And he's recently become fairly well known for his support of the Occupy Wall Street movement, as well as some of his recent public positions on Ferguson in particular. Captain Lewis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate being invited here today. And I was going to speak about police brutality, corruption, racism, but then I said, no, I have to get down to the nitty-gritty. I gotta talk about something that is even more important than that. So at the last minute, I chose to talk about the foundation of corruption, racism, and brutality. And I'm going to take you down to the very bare foundation. I'm going to take you down to the tip of the roots of these problems. And a lot of this is my own personal knowledge from observing police for those 24 years. Their behavior, their thoughts, their feelings, the way they talk. And that has given me more inside information than I got from any psychology book. I do have an undergraduate degree in clinical psychology, but none of that is going to be used in my presentation. And now I believe, so anyway, since I wrote this up on the fly, be prepared, I might consult my notes a little more frequently, and also it may appear a little disjointed. Anyway, I believe the most important aspect of getting a professional police department that has true respect and concern for the community starts with understanding the psychodynamics going on in a police officer's mind. And the single most important step in this screening process is what they call it's a written test called the MPPI. Does anyone know what MPPI is an acronym for? MPPI is the most widely used personality test in the world. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. It stands for Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory test. It measures a whole lot of different areas of your personality. It is more used to find tendencies. The results are not written in stone, but tendencies are extremely important if that's all you have to go on. Now, part of the screening process to join the police department, there's several steps. You have a physical, where you have to pass health heartbeats and x-rays of your spine to make sure you're not prone to spine problems, so there's a health issue. There's a polygraph test, also known as a lie detector test, and this step takes away your largest number of applicants. It's the polygraph test. They have a all-comprehensive question that they ask me and they ask everybody, and that was, the examiner asked me, Mr. Lewis, coming here today, what was the one question you hoped we would not ask of you? Well, I had a lot of questions I hoped they were not going to ask of me, but that really can uncover a number of things. The other question they asked was, Mr. Lewis, in your entire life, what are you most ashamed of doing? All right, and that will knock out a lot of, and I'm not going to tell you what my answer to that was. But anyway, the final step is this MPPI. It's a 100-question test, and just to give you an extreme of a question, this is obvious here, but it's the one I remembered most because it was most relevant to me. The question asked, if you had a Saturday afternoon off, would you rather work on a car's engine in your driveway with the guys drinking a few beers, or would you rather be walking with a nature group through a forest identifying rare birds with a set of binoculars? Now, since I am a birder, I obviously went with walking through the forest. But you can see where now you're talking about little different types of personalities. And after you get 100 of those questions, you can form a good sense of a person. They also measure compassion, empathy, sensitivity, self-esteem, willingness to take orders, independent thinking, and also, to me, the most important one is power and authority needs. They are not looking for people who have high levels of sensitivity and compassion or empathy. What happens here is it is the personnel department that hires police applicants. The police department themselves do not hire the applicants. The personnel departments of all cities, basically, they make two mistakes here in hiring. The reason they knock people out with the high sensitivity and the compassion is because of two reasons. Number one, and this goes along with what Mackie said, 40,000 years ago, who did they pick to take care of this bad guy? The big tough guy or the smart guy? As she said, they picked the big tough guy. 40,000 years later, they're still doing that. Personnel department does that for two reasons. They got a lot of pressure from the police commissioner and the upper police command. We do not want social worker personalities here. We want the tough guy. It's a tough job, and it's going to take a tough person to be able to deal with the guts and the gory details. The second reason they do not hire sensitive and compassionate people has to do with money. They feel that you hire these sensitive people, these people with compassion and empathy, you're going to spend a lot of money on them in the police academy, thousands of dollars for this education, which lasts 4, 5, 6 months. What's going to happen then is the social worker type is going to get out there. They're not going to be able to deal with the blood and guts, and so they quit. And there goes those thousands of dollars down the drain. And there is a lot of gore. There's no doubt about that. I could talk an hour about the gore. Just a few examples. I had to lift up a man's head, detached from his body, because he put his neck down on a railroad track and had the train decapitate him. I had to cut down a 10-year-old girl. She hung herself from the home banister with a belt. And why? She was bullied. And I just want to interrupt here. If anybody has a relative, a niece, a nephew, a child that says they are being bullied, please take that as seriously as you can. Do not rub that off and say, oh, it's only a phase, they'll learn to like you. That is extremely important. Do not devalue the importance of that. But so there is a lot of gore. But social workers deal with gore. They're all the time going into homes where there's children abused, where there's wretched living conditions, and they keep the job. They're in that job because they have the compassion. They want to help people. And so it's a myth that you need this John Wayne type of personality, the big tough guy that they used 40,000 years ago. You don't need that individual. In fact, that individual hurts you. And here's the second reason I talked about. I thought the first reason personnel hires the tough guys because that's the police department wants that image, and they think they need that type of guy. The second thing is about the money is if the individual quits, it's going to cost them thousands of dollars. But it's what you call penny wise and dollar foolish. Sure, you're going to lose that money on the guy or woman that quits. But what about the tough guy that now you have the brutality case? Those cases are settled for millions of dollars. Forget the thousands of dollars. So you actually lose a preponderance more money by hiring individuals that are prone to brutality cases. All right, now how does this fit into the militarization of the police, which we have all witnessed? I saw it down in Ferguson. I spent 22 days in Ferguson. I went down 10 days in August because I realized that police chief in that department was whitewashing this. That officer was guilty as hell. And then I came back thinking I wouldn't have to go again. Then I realized the grand jury was going to whitewash this, and I went down for 12 days. And down there I saw armored personnel carriers. I never saw it before in my life. I saw them in their military garb with a little machine gunnery up there on top. Had it pointed at peaceful protesters. And I was one of them. And you can say, okay, well, they had to move that equipment because there was no rioting going on. This was before that. Well, if you're going to move that equipment, geez, move it 4 o'clock in the morning or something. This was an absolute show to show the citizens, we're going to crush you if we have to. It was an absolute disrespect to everybody out there that was peacefully protesting. And when you have this type of equipment, why do you have military equipment here? A big reason is because, like I said, a lot of power and authority figures are in the police department. Why do you think is the main reason? What is the main motivating factor to have officers rise up through the ranks all the way to the police commission? You go from corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, deputy commissioner, commissioner. What do you think the motivation is there? It's not more money. It's not necessarily the prestige. It's the power and authority. Right? That is the way to fulfill your power and authority need, is to rise up the ranks. So, now you have a police commissioner that is there because he's power hungry. But he's the police commissioner. He can't go any higher. Did that quench his desire for power? Just like a filthy rich billionaire, your Sam Waltons, your Koch brothers, their desire for money is unquenchable. They have multi-billions, not millions, billions, and they still get up every day trying to make more money. They even give money to they bribe politicians to make sure that the minimum wage stays where it is. They bribe politicians to make sure that they don't have to give health care for part-time workers. They're still so greedy, they want more and more money. It's sociopathic. It's a desire that can not be quenched. Same with many in the police department. Obviously, there's exceptions, and I don't want to paint too strong a brush, but I will paint a broad brush. They get up there because of their desire for power and authority. So they're at this level now. They're police chiefs. They can't go any higher. What do? Military equipment, tanks, machine guns, armored carriers. That'll make me even more powerful. That now I'm not only the commander of officers, I'm a commander of a military-style police department, and I will dress my officers from toe to head in armored equipment. Yes, I want it. Now, if in fact a mayor would ever allow that equipment to come into their city, which they should never do, but if they do, they should set down that this equipment must only be used in the most exigent circumstances. And that means you could probably go a generation without having to use them in most police departments. The trouble is, you get this equipment, and by the way, you're members of the SWAT team also. Why does somebody want to join the SWAT team? I don't want to broad brush everybody, but primarily they want to join the SWAT team out of desire of power. Desire of having that ultimate power that they send me in, where it really takes the expert to kill people. We all know the propaganda of that movie, American Sniper, going around now. That's a sociopathic tendency.